Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcast fans of all ages. I'm Dave Valente. Thanks for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. We're having issues with our YouTube feed, so I'm just trying to play around with that and see if we can get that working. So, folks who are usually on YouTube, send them over to the Facebook side for thrills, chills, and incredible spills. So, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm Dave Valente. Joining us from Pennsylvania, Joe Solosky, and from Maryland, Dandy Dan Fishman. How are y'all
What's
doing?
up?
I don't know.
I am ready to rumble. Let's talk. Let's talk about crazy politics, Trump cabinet, foreign policy,
foreign affairs. Trump has foreign affairs.
Well, and let's
That's how he got Melania.
But yeah, well,
His
so
affairs,
Trump has
period.
foreign affairs. I wanted to give credit to a joke that you laid down, Dave, that I thought was fantastic, which was that about Matt Gaetz having dropped out of the race once November turned 21. Which
Good one, Dan.
Yeah, that's the great thing about what happened this week was Matt Gaetz, when he was nominated for AG, he decided to resign from the House and
Right.
completely, and then decided not. Yeah, he could have. I mean, I think he technically could have said, "You know what? I resigned the House for this term. No, I resigned the House from this term, but I was reelected in November, so I can take the seat back on January 6th." But he said that he's completely resigning and not going to stay in the House or return to the House. And I'm okay with that. One less skis in the
ability
in the
of the president to reward you with a nice overseas position, or some other position that doesn't have congressional scrutiny. But actually, it's funny. I had forgotten about this until just this moment. But there actually aren't that many positions that don't have government oversight for them that the president can appoint you to. And I remember that because Bill Weld was appointed ambassador to Mexico by Bill Clinton. And Strom Thurmond killed his nomination.
Him and Jesse Helms, yeah.
Yeah, because of Weld's pro-gay marriage position.
Pro and pro-cannabis position.
I don't think he was pro-cannabis then. He wasn't.
That was one of the issues they brought up, was that he was pro-cannabis, and that was part of the reason why they didn't like him going to Mexico, because of the drug war and all that stuff.
Interesting. I mean, Bill wasn't really pro-cannabis in 2016. We kind of had to twist his arm on that.
I think
did eventually come around, but
yeah,
it was. You know what it was? Is he wasn't pro legalizing heroin, so I guess that's a little different. But yeah, that's pretty funny, Sean. All right, so we've done the jokes.
Actually, let's talk.
Yeah.
There's another joke in that the sheer number of libertarians appointed to this cabinet.
It's awesome, isn't it?
I mean, so many.
Promised.
Promises kept, promises made, promises ignored.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
They got snookered again.
Well, you say
people.
You say that, but I have heard that Angela is going to get the ambassadorship to Devil's Island. So,
ambassadorship to the Fire Festival.
If she gets the ambassadorship to Antarctica, it'll be appropriate.
Yep.
Yeah. But so let's talk about, and I missed a few when I went through here because I just did the ones that have to go through the Senate. So these are the nominees for, and not all these make immediate sense as being foreign policy decisions, but they all have their hands somewhere in foreign policy when it comes to the administration. So Secretary of State, of course, is Marco Rubio. The Secretary of Defense is Rapey McPete Hegseth. CIA is John Ratliff. The Director of National Intelligence is Tulsi Gabbard. The UN Ambassador is Elise Stefanik. Commerce is Harold Howard. Yeah, Harold Lutnick. Department of Energy is a guy named Chris Wright. And our NATO representative is going to be Matthew Whitaker. And there's a couple others that are in the list here. Ones that do not need confirmation. The let's see, borders are Thomas Homan, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Deputy National Security Advisor Alex Wong. So it's a mixed bag of people. I mean, my hope is that
let's talk about the sane ones for sure, right? I mean, I think that
the sane ones. That's great.
Marco Rubio could have been appointed by any administration,
sure.
right? I mean, he's not a Trump special.
Little Marco.
We're not going to like him because he's Marco Rubio, but in terms of being off the deep end crazy, the bar has moved for where the deep end is, and little Marco, even in his little stature, is able to keep his head above the crazy water. He's not off the deep end in the crazy pool.
And you could see him actually keeping his head barely above that level as he's Secretary of State. It's who to thunk it.
Right. I mean, what's interesting about it is that, it puts him fifth in line, right, for the presidency, which is interesting in and of itself. But
the plots begin.
Yeah, but he also, has a fair bit of experience. I mean, Rex Tillerson, Trump's last original appointee to Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson was a very sort of Trumpy appointee, but, actually had a fair bit of experience in international affairs. I mean, he was the CEO of the largest oil company in the world, but he had traveled the world.
What did he say about Donald Trump?
He did, in the end, say that Trump was, I don't remember the exact quote, but certainly he thought Trump was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what Rubio is going to do. It's going to be interesting. But the one other thing that's interesting about it is that now Rubio is technically, if we want to talk about 25th Amendment here, Rubio's in a position to be a mover and shaker on that.
Mm-hmm. Are there what cabinet positions haven't been nominated yet? Any?
There are 3 that are remaining open so far, and they're small. Small Business Administration has not been announced. The U.S. Trade Rep hasn't been announced. I'm not sure what CEA is.
And these are cabinet or just?
I'm sorry. These are positions that require they require
Senate confirmation.
Senate confirmation. They're not.
But they're not in line of succession, are they?
No.
Well, no. Hang on. All the cabinet people are in line of succession.
The cabinet people are, but the Small Business Administration is under that. Mehmet Oz is not going to be cabinet member. He's just over Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay. Right. Let's. I'll make a comment, and this funny thought went through my head this week. Obviously, the positions have been filled. That's that. But if something like Department of Interior became available, everybody knows I'm not a Trump guy at all. But if he was to ask me to fill that role, just because I've watched Keith or Sutherland in Designated Survivor, I'd probably take the position just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I'll sit out the State of the Union just for the off chance that somebody takes that,
just blow it all up.
I do want to point out that the plot for Designated Survivor is, of course, taken from Tom Clancy's book.
Yes, Dead of Honor.
Right, but let's circle around that, because what I thought you were going to say was that it's interesting if you could take one good thing from each cabinet person You can probably point to something that they've all got that we say, okay, this would be great, except for Hegseth.
Mhm.
Pete Hegseth has absolutely no redeeming values.
Nothing.
There's nothing to go for.
Mhm.
It is.
I mean, if you're gonna take his story about what happened in that California hotel room, at the very least, he is admitting to consensually cheating on his wife with a woman who was cheating on her husband.
Right.
We can let's talk about the Republicans, and their
Great
whole thing
resume.
about being
They don't care
about being the
that.
party of family values. Like,
Well, and now, I mean, the one thing I will say, we talked about this, I think, last week, right? He has a Bronze Star. He was definitely a warrior in the
Yeah.
field. However, warriors don't win wars, they win battles.
yes,
Generals win wars by building armies, not by fighting. Hegseth has shown no example that he could do what is necessary to prepare an army for a modern day conflict.
Mhm.
And the thing is, as we look around the world, and we're going to circle into this when we get into foreign policy, there's a pretty good potential for U.S. involvement in some very interesting armed conflicts coming up in the next 10 years.
oh yeah, I can.
And it's going to be a place where innovation and planning ahead is really important. And you look at, although the U.S. military is clearly just, wasting money left
yeah.
and right. It's a boondoggle, et cetera, et
Burning.
cetera. But we do it in a way that we still have a very strong esprit de corps, a well-trained group of fighting people, and, unquestionably, amazing technology in the field.
Mm.
Those things, Hegseth would be completely undermined
Oh, yeah.
because he has no idea how to do any of that stuff.
No, and I mean, really, a cabinet secretary, they'll set direction, and right now for military, the big thing is AI and how AI impacts the military, how to uh, automation, things like that, getting more drones and improving drone technology and things like that. You know, whether he's going to be able to, I mean, it's hard to say that he's not going to be able to get budget because the House and Senate love to splash money on the Department
Yeah.
of Defense. But managing those resources and getting them in the right places, is he going to be able to put together a team to do that? Especially if Trump's talking about replacing generals.
Right.
If you're removing the people that know how things work, you're going to have a bad time. And Trump should have known this lesson from the last time, that if you remove the people that know how to do things, yeah, everything slows down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Tulsi Gabbard's another special pick in the department, or I'm sorry, the
Director of
of National
Intelligence.
Intelligence,
National
Which is,
oxymoron.
yeah, well, it's especially in this case because you're talking about a person who has made nice with Bashir al-Assad,
Yes.
who has praised Putin. She has, again, a person with a reasonable combat record that we can respect, served well in uniform, but has not shown an understanding that a critical element of American security is based on understanding that our fundamental point, we'll go back into this in foreign policy soon enough, is the American idea that a rising tide lifts all boats, that we prosper by making other people free. And that's all we have to do.
Hmm.
And when we support Bashir al-Assad, that's not what we're doing.
It's difficult to jump on board with her anymore. She had some flair, but Anybody who criticizes her own party, criticizes Trump, and then sells out the way that she did, credibility is right down the drain. I don't see anybody looking at her and saying, "Wow, what a great pick."
No, and here's the thing with all the picks. The picks were made not so much for competence. Even if you think he got it right with Rubio.
I don't think he got it right with Rubio.
No, I mean,
I'm just saying that. Yeah,
best of a bad lot. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
The thing for here is unquestioned loyalty to Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thought that they're going to be quote unquote disruptors.
Yeah, right. The people who really bent the knee as much as anything else, because I mean, Rubio was clearly disloyal because he chose to run against Trump. On the other hand,
he said he had a small penis.
Yes, and yet, right,
tiny hands.
Yep, exactly. And yet here we are, right? But that's an example of people who are willing to, to self-abase in front of Trump. That's what he likes.
Oh yeah.
And so
feeds his ego.
Now, I will say that Pam Bondi, although she took his side, represented him in the cases. I mean, she did pretty well actually in those cases. She was elected Attorney General in Florida, first woman elected to that position, and even NPR will say she has deep prosecutorial experience.
Yeah, she's a. I mean,
arguably the best qualified of any of his cabinet appointees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I mean, I'm not totally sold on her, but certainly a far better person than Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
her nominee predecessor.
Yeah,
yeah. It's crazy to think that that's the best out of. I don't know some of these folks like the labor designee Laura E. Chavez de Remer. I do know that the Secretary of the Interior is Doug Jar of Mayonnaise Borgum.
Yeah. Well, your new boss, right? Veteran Affairs.
Doug Collins.
Yep. Former basketball coach for the Philadelphia 76ers.
No, wrong one.
No, different Doug Collins?
Different Doug Collins.
Oh.
He actually was a
in that case, I don't
like
like
Air
this guy
Force.
anymore.
Yeah, chaplain in the Air Force, and went to kind of a sketchy law school.
Oh yeah, no. So already chaplain in the Air Force is a really sketch thing. For people who don't know, you can just do a little bit of digging and find out that the Air Force had a hardcore Christian theocracy issue, where essentially, not just non-Christians but non-Baptists were considered inappropriate to be members of the Air Force and encouraged to resign. And so this guy being the chaplain,
I did not know that.
Of this space, it's pretty sketch.
Wow.
So I went to high school in Colorado Springs. Air Academy is there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty, they definitely had, and this, you see a lot of that coming to pass now, right? I'm actually surprised that Trump hasn't appointed a national chaplain. But here's the other thing about it is that you see Trump pushing these people, but we know that secretly Trump is not a moral person, right? He could give two shits about the Christian ideology of do unto others as you have them do unto you. If you ask,
unless it comes to a blowjob, I mean,
right? Well, I was going to say, if you ask,
excellent.
Right. Sorry,
that
probably just got us kicked off of
it. Was well timed.
Right. That probably just got us kicked off of LinkedIn. So
well, it's funny because he was at a
2 Corinthians
where they talked about 2 Corinthians. Yes, he was at a prayer rally where they asked him about the parable of the fatted calf, and he said, "Rosie O'Donnell."
Nah.
So,
wow.
I'll be here all week.
He obviously didn't look in the mirror.
Right. I was disappointed. I had heard that Thomas Massey was going to get Secretary of Agriculture. That did not happen.
No.
Well, I'd love to know your impressions. I have long admired Thomas Massey, and to see that he actually, he had been pushing against his own party for years and years, and I love that. Yeah. I mean, I left them years ago, and to see him endorse Trump right before Election Day, I was truly disappointed.
I'll tell two stories, and one is going to be a Bill Weld story. When Bill Weld was governor of Massachusetts, he was a Republican in a state that, hardcore Democrat. And when he was reelected with 77% of the electorate. It was astonishing. And during that time, he had signed an assault weapon ban that the legislature, at no point in any time in recent memory, have Republicans held more than 10% of the state house. Their high water mark is 18 seats out of a 180 seat legislature.
Good God.
So they could never sustain a veto or anything like that. I had the chance to travel a bit with the governor. At one point in time, I asked him about that. I'm like, I'm just wondering, they're going to override your veto, but what's it like? He's like, if you're a Republican, being the governor of Massachusetts, like being in a canoe that is, going down shit river. The only thing that you can hope to do is occasionally stick your paddle in and steer it just a little bit to the right. And that's it. If you try to stop it, you're not going to be able to. The boat's going to be flipped over and be capsized. So all you can do. And so I think that Thomas Massey, maybe that's his space. I also do think, there is something to the idea. I don't agree with this, but the idea that the only way to fix the system is to break it. And maybe, I understand the people who think that Trump is going to break the system.
No,
I don't see it. But and Dan, I think you're smarter and more insightful than me on your Bill Weld comments. Very cool. But again, I turn around and say, how much of that was expediency as opposed to principledness? And we could get into a total argument there on which is more important at any given moment. But sooner or later, everybody's going to stand on principle.
Well, but that's right.
He's fighting against a possible primary challenge. That's what he's.
I think.
I know he survived him. But.
You say to yourself, but also, there's a thing that says, we shall. What's the famous thing that we shall all
hang together?
We stand separately. Yeah, exactly. There is a certain amount of it that you say to yourself, what can I do from the inside? And, there's another sort of, a much more terrible example of this. But, we talk about, the Holocaust. And already I've lost Godwin's law by mentioning the Nazis. But one of the things that Jews don't do is criticize the Jews who did what they had to do to survive. Because that was the number one component. That's always the number one mission. And so for a guy like Thomas Massey, or for anybody, I can excuse their saying, if everybody gets swept under and all that's left are idiots, we're not doing anybody any good. Whereas if we stay as voices of reason, what is it worth to have one voice of reason left in the room when there's going to be a point in time where Trump is going to say, I think I'm going to nuke Cuba?
I tell you what, I think Thomas Massey has always been that voice of reason. We don't want to see that ever compromised. He's not the compromising person in the Holocaust. Right. By parallel. He's not supposed to be. he's supposed to be that person that we all look up to and say, this is the higher bar. That's how I've always looked at it. Now, again, maybe I'm unrealistic in this day and age, but there's only that way of looking at it, I feel.
I look at what's the worst thing that's going to happen. I think about, one of the interesting things that they talk about, Linda, Chief of Staff, Linda. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Stiles, Wiles.
Wiles.
Linda Wiles. And Susan Wiles, right. And one of the things they talk about is that, she's this incredible politician because she's recognized the fact that when there's a thing that is in dispute, Trump generally goes with the opinion of the last person to speak with him. And that was pretty well known during his first administration. And so people would try to gauge where they were so that they could be the last person to speak with him. And what that means is that, at least to me, some people are saying to themselves, if I can be in a position where I might be the last person to speak to him, maybe I avert this catastrophe or that catastrophe. And I don't know, because, Trump is, I really do believe that he is apositional. I don't think he gives two shits about any of his positions.
He's transactional completely. What does it bring to him?
Right, exactly.
So here's a little bit about Miss Wiles. She was a political tactician who managed Trump's 2024 presidential campaign, worked in Republican campaigns and administrations at both state and federal levels since the Reagan era. Only campaign manager to survive the entire campaign working for Mr. Trump, and first woman to serve as White House Chief of Staff.
Yeah, and by all accounts, she's powerful in that she has, a real understanding of how to keep Trump focused. And that's why things were so different for him this cycle than they have been in the past. There was a stage, I think, when we all thought Kamala's got it. She's got all this momentum, et cetera, et cetera. And, they came back. They came back from that. And I don't think it was something that Trump could have done. But I do think that it was Susan Wiles. And so as Chief of Staff, I hope, and this could just be wishful thinking. I do think that there is a reasonable chance that, we end up in a real war, like a real, go hide out in your cellar for 2 months kind of war.
Interesting.
And the thing that's going to keep us away from that is good intelligence and understanding what's going to happen. I think you guys have probably, I don't remember what the movie was called, but the whole process of the Cuban Missile Crisis and how the intelligence that Kennedy was getting in terms of knowing how far we could push Khrushchev and stuff like that. I do believe that the U.S. has that level of intelligence still.
I think we've got the capabilities. It's who we have in place.
Would Trump pay any heed to that?
Yeah.
Are there people who are telling him
that's the scary part. Trump, this guy's got his hands ultimately on the nuclear football. That's a frightening thought just to even ponder. And, you like to think that the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they've got to make a command before anything happens or is launched. He can't do it unilaterally.
Right.
And I worry about how that process of checks and balance, of careful, can be subrogated.
Yep. I think that it's a fear, very good fear.
Well, you think
about the fact that he's purging generals.
Yeah.
I think we've all read the instances at least twice where the Soviets themselves thought we were launching, and one of their men in the process of 3 basically had the presence of mind to say, whoa, wait, we're not doing this, be it from land or from sub. And in both cases that I've read, they averted
was a glitch.
catastrophe.
Yeah, it's a technical glitch that did that. And you know, we'll talk about flashpoints here in a minute because there are several. Some known, some not. People are not really focusing on. Um, but yeah, so this group of folks, especially on the intelligence side, um, when you talk
Tulsi
about
Gabbard,
the
John Ratcliffe at the CIA,
Ratcliffe at CIA, Tulsi Gabbard, when you talk about
and then
boy,
Pam Bondi being the head of the FBI.
yeah,
As
yeah. I
chief.
mean, it's and Christy Nome with Homeland Security, which
Right.
is going to have some factor.
Oh,
in
in fact, you're right. FBI reports to Homeland Security now, not to
They have Christy Nome in a position.
Yeah, Chris,
the
the puppy
director of
killer.
Homeland Security.
They don't have
Puppy
any
killer.
dogs. They don't have any dogs in that department, do they?
Police dogs. All the police dogs are going
I'm
to get
sorry,
yeeted.
I couldn't resist. I'm here every Saturday night, guys.
All
That's
right,
pretty funny.
but yeah, you got to wonder about the quality of people viewing this intelligence. Ratcliffe was a former Texas congressman. He was a director of national intelligence during the first term.
Yeah.
Tulsi has her moments of what the fuck are you doing?
Mhm.
Yeah, there from the intelligence standpoint, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the people that he's put in place there.
Yeah. Well, and especially
which makes the generals far more important.
well, but that's where they're
Yes.
going to purge the institutions that have preserved themselves
Yes.
for this time period. So that they can do all the other stuff that they want to do, and part of that is, I mean, certainly in terms of intelligence, it just makes no sense to me why you do that. I can understand, some aspects of like, one of the things they don't have, in the list of quote unquote of people who are doing things. Excuse me, Elon and Vivek and their Department of Government Efficiency. They don't have to go through the Senate.
No.
It's going to be very strange to see what they're going to be able to do.
And he's one crazy guy. When you look at a Thomas Massey, when you look at Tulsi Gabbard, you have this little glimmer of hope in the back of your mind saying that when push comes to shove, they're saying, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We're not doing this. And maybe that's the fail safe. I don't know. We won't know till it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because I think that you're exactly right that, I would think that those people have enough sanity and enough lack of vanity that they would be able to put aside everything to save the world.
You like to think so. I like that lack of vanity you mentioned, because you're not going to get that from Trump, but you might get it from these people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so with somebody like Gabbard. I really don't.
I mean, I don't know.
I think she's been in a performative phase in politics for the last 5 or so years.
Right. It's certainly interesting. She, her positions in Hawaii. I mean, it's really weird to get elected as a Democrat when you're anti-LGBT, but Hawaii's got this weird thing.
Who would think?
Yeah. I will also say, in that group of people that I am worried about is Elise Stefanik, who
UN secretary or UN ambassador.
Yeah. Ambassador
I'm also worried about Michael Waltz, who's the national security advisor. He's a former Green Beret. But he's like a big hawk on Iran, and it's like having John Bolton back in the same position. Like,
and let's talk about the nepotism there, right?
Yeah,
his sister-in-law is the Surgeon General.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's going to be. Yeah, I guess this part leads into. I will briefly say Linda McMahon in education, it's I saw her destroy Blumenthal in the debate. She just ripped him up. She was dominatingly the smartest person in the room. But it doesn't matter. You're not going to win as a Republican in Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them allowing teachers to give kids the stone cold stunner when they start acting up in class.
We're Jesse Ventura and Hulk Hogan.
That's certainly a fair thing to say. Reagan was an actor, but I think most of us agree that his first 2 years were pretty good.
And there's nothing against being an actor or being any other. He worked well. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dan.
No, that's okay. Keep going.
I was thinking the other day in my lifetime, how many times the presidency has just been a pendulum swinging. And it's been every time. Every time a Republican is starting from Eisenhower, it swings back to Democrat. And it never repeats. Now, I count Kennedy Johnson as one administration.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But it never, ever, ever repeats, except one time.
Bush,
Reagan,
after 8 years of
Bush
Reagan.
won. That was the only time in my lifetime. And that is simply because Reagan was so freaking popular. Take that out. It's never, knowing that in 4 years, it swings back to Dem.
Right. And honestly, I think if they had run Biden after Obama, Biden would have won. They underestimated the amount of misogyny that's still latent in the Democratic Party.
Interesting.
Because Obama, that's the thing about it, is they talk about repealing term limits. I think Obama would win a general election if they had it again.
Yeah, but it's amazing with what you said about Biden. Biden is so milquetoast, so fifth place. It's amazing that they could elect him.
I think 2016 Biden was an order of magnitude better than 2020 Biden, who was an order of magnitude better than 2024 Biden. 2024 is completely decrepit. 2020, he could still eat solid foods. And 2016,
it's Tapioca Tuesdays, man.
I'm picturing the tubes of food from the Apollo program right now. But go ahead.
There you
go. That's just it. But it's definitely true that with the exception of George Herschel Walker Bush, there's never been another period where a president has had 8 years and then his party has retained the White House. His or her party.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we're seeing now, we're vacillating back and forth between, we had Trump, then we went to Biden, then we're back to Trump. I think it's a fundamental lack of trust in both major parties right now that we are so close, so divided on things. We don't know where to go. Like we just don't know where to go on this. And the Democrats rotted out trust, so they lost. Trump's got 4 years. He's gonna. I think the swing has become much lower than one party gets 8 years to do something, but because they don't build any trust in the people.
Yeah, and, as much as during those times you hear people thoughtfully say, "Oh, it's time for a third party," or "How about several third parties?" But you know how it goes. They never are willing to put their vote there, and it ends up just being the same pendulum swing.
This is a speech that Dave's heard me give before, but Calvin Coolidge famously said, "The business of America is business." We, as Americans, are excellent at doing things, knowing how to understand processes. And although you can go around the world and people will agree, "Oh, I hate those friggin' Americans," if you say to them, "Who do you want to have as a business partner? What nationality?" "Oh, we want an American to be our business partner," because we're really good at doing things. And the problem is that at one point in time, the political parties became corporations, and they're corporations that sell elections, and they're really, really good at that.
And you make some great points, and I want to talk about Calvin Coolidge for just a minute.
Yep.
A couple things personally. Calvin Coolidge was president when my dad was born. And I have always admired how Coolidge could have run for another term, but he pretty much stated, this can go to your head. This is not a good idea. I'm out. And I've always admired that. And then when Eisenhower was president, when I was born, he was bound to that second term. There was no going forward, no matter how popular he was.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Hamilton?
I've seen it. Yeah.
My wife is dying to see it.
I can't recommend it, Joe.
Christmas is buy her tickets.
I can't recommend it enough. Go see it in New York since you're so close, because New York City really is a character in the play, and seeing it in New York was incredibly meaningful. There is a part where George Washington calls in Alexander Hamilton to help him write his farewell address. And even now, just thinking about it moves me to tears so much that the man loved his country, and it comes out in his farewell address. This part, he says, I don't think of myself so much to know that I didn't make any grievous errors. Exactly, one last time, Sean's got it. To think that I didn't make any grievous errors, but I hope that my countrymen will forgive me as I go to lay myself down in the halls of rest. And it's amazing. And he talks about the fact that he has to leave because he has to teach the country how to say goodbye.
He's the idea that
exactly, that leaders are supposed to fade off into the sunset, and it's just amazing. Go see Hamilton; it's wonderful.
Joe, so Hamilton is actually in Hershey right now, and my wife wants to go see it in person.
Go.
We looked at the tickets. $529.
Whoa! I may not be able to get my wife the Christmas present after all, but I'll try.
Guys, I'll tell you, it's worth it. I paid more for my tickets than I paid for my World Series tickets, more than I paid for my Stanley Cup tickets.
Wow!
I do not regret it at all. It was, now I'm pretty much burned out on all this political shit. But then I thought I was, and it really fired me up again. It's true. You can see it on Disney, and that's not a bad.
That's how we saw it. Yeah. And here's the problem, though, with seeing it in Hershey, is it's not the original Broadway cast. You're seeing the off-Broadway cast.
Yeah.
If it was $529 to see it in New York with the original cast, I probably would see that as much better value than going to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Let me throw this out there to you guys. You're both a little more cultured than me. Back in the years, back in my first entanglement, I remember the ex and I, she insisted we need to go to Toronto to Pantage's, if I'm saying that right, Pantage's Theater to see the Phantom of the Opera. And we did. We not only went once, we went twice. And when I saw it in Pittsburgh at the Benedum Center, it was just as good, if not better. And I always thought, isn't that interesting? Now, the tickets were priced similarly, but it was local and it was a phenomenal presentation. So it makes me wonder what Hamilton would be like more locally.
I mean, certainly there's nothing. It's not like Wicked, which I've seen locally and obviously is in theaters right now.
Yeah.
Wicked requires, an Idina Menzel level voice. Hamilton doesn't have anything like that. It really pushes it. It requires great linguistic skills. It's very fast, very stop, stuff like that. But I would think that they could do Hamilton well. I think that the thing about it, at least for me, the stage production has a tremendous amount to do with it, and that's the hardest part. With really just a very minimalistic set, you are transported from a trading ship in the Caribbean to a bar in New York City to retreating from Kips Bay when the British are firing at you
Well,
all in the space of exactly the same room.
I'll say this: I remember when I started dating my current wife. One of our earliest dates was I took her to Wicked at the Benedum Center in Pittsburgh, and it was so well done. And it most likely earned me the chance for another date. So
there you go.
That's
well worth it. That's well worth it, though.
Yeah, I love Wicked as well. I'm definitely going to see the movie. I've heard that it's more faithful to the book than to the musical, which is going to be interesting.
Love the music,
but I mean, it has a lot of the music in there, but it has a lot of the stuff that the musical left out for.
My wife is going to see that tomorrow night with her work friends. So,
all that being said, gentlemen, give me 60 seconds. I will be right back.
All right. Well, we're going to fill.
Right on. So, what do you think is going to be the biggest flashpoint with Trump's?
It's going to be interesting. Like, I mean, you see happening in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
What you generally see happening when warring parties think that peace is about to break out. Everybody grabs everything they can to enhance their position in negotiations. And that's what I think is happening right now. So I think that, there probably is going to be peace in Ukraine. My guess is going to be that Ukrainians will come up with something where they agree to relinquish the eastern provinces, but with the idea that they'll have some sort of neutral hold and then they'll have an election in 8 years or something like that. Because I mean, they know they can't fight if the United States doesn't help them.
Yep.
And so what are they going to do? On the other hand, Trump knows that, if he gives in completely, he does appear weak. I mean, he's transactional enough that at least I think he's transactional enough that he knows that if you give Putin this, after you give him everything else, I mean, he said it. He's like, we wouldn't be in this situation if we hadn't given them the Crimea.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably right. But instead, we did nothing when that was really the time to do it. I mean, I think that's sort of where we are. And so it's where we try to get into that situation. But the other thing about it is that I do think that I don't think there's going to be any compromise on whether or not Ukraine can join NATO.
Oh, they should.
Yeah. Well, they definitely should.
But NATO's not going to be a big thing for Trump.
We're talking about foreign policy tonight. I think it's a slam dunk and a good thing that Ukraine joins NATO. But a lot, when you look at foreign policy, Trump has talked about criticizing and dropping from NATO. I think that'd be a horrible mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think that's what he wants to do. Libertarians would love to see, some libertarians would love to see that happen. Mm-hmm. But I suspect that, again, with Trump, it's just transactional. Mm-hmm. He wants Europe to pay more.
And Europe, I mean, that's the thing. Europe has been paying. I mean, they've added new members, and they are putting well, Sweden hasn't put as much money into the fight as the United States. Well, Sweden's the size of like Florida.
Yeah.
Well, right, but even per capita, they haven't. Now, if you're going to say per GDP ratio, then of course the United States.
It's weapons and logistics, though. I mean, these countries are providing weapons, are providing logistics. I don't know. The question is, do we make it to Inauguration Day when it comes to Ukraine with the saber rattling that we've seen over allowing Ukraine to fire deeper and deeper into Russia? Putin's response. I mean, I think you do hope that clearer heads prevail, but perhaps Russia serves us up some mushrooms for Thanksgiving.
When you think about clearer heads, I'll throw this out. Trump's 78. What's Putin? 71, 72?
He's a hockey star, though.
Yeah, but my point is these guys could both croak on the same day. And if something
Nice.
like that happens, you've got this huge vacuum of power that's going to transition. A lot of this could change overnight.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's very much about control and controlling who has access to him. But perhaps somebody within Putin's inner circle gets to him and
Yeah.
upsets the apple cart.
Yeah, or we find out that what's his name didn't actually die in that airplane crash, and became Batman.
And there he is. But with Putin, it
I'm
could be
Batman.
upsetting the vodka cart. It could be an easy thing depending on who's nearby.
Yeah. Ken does raise a good point that in December 22nd of last year, the National Defense Authorization Act said that the president cannot withdraw the country from NATO, and it requires a supermajority vote.
So let's bring up for a moment the president's foreign policy on Israel and the Middle East. What are your comments on that?
We saw what happened in the first administration, where he moved the embassies from Tel Aviv, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Yeah,
which has long been a desire of the
Israeli government,
Netanyahu regime to get it there. Now that Netanyahu's back in power,
I think that it's going to be bad for the Palestinians. Trump is transactional, and there's no transaction in which Israel and the larger community of Israeli supporters aren't able to give Trump more of what he wants.
Yeah.
So
the interesting thing, though, with the Middle East, the greater Middle East, is that the progress that Trump made in getting Middle Eastern states to sign deals with the Israelis.
Right.
You saw the UAE, you saw Bahrain, you saw the Saudis were on their way, and I think Trump's loss really killed the momentum on that. But Morocco, and these are not the firebrand states of the Middle East, but they're making progress within the Middle East to recognize big Israel and
I think that's probably where it goes. And I think the part that does work for Trump is that it tremendously appeals to his ego that he can be seen as the architect of peace in the Middle East. And that carries a lot of weight with it. And I think that he knows that the right way to do it is to make it financially more rewarding for the people who have been supporting chaos in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And if you could get more money towards peace in the Middle East than you can towards chaos in the Middle East, you might be able to do it. I mean, yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Let's look at this. In his first administration, he waved a pretty big olive branch toward North Korea, even met with Kim Jong-un and, had that famous photo shoot right at the demilitarized zone.
Yep.
Do you think he tries to quell that totalitarian government? I mean, they're now sending troops to Russia to fight Ukraine.
Well, I think with North Korea, if there is a politician that is more transactional than Trump, it is Kim Jong-un. He is trying to get resources into his country, not to feed his people, to feed himself, essentially.
Well, like resources like electricity, my heavens.
Yeah.
He's a bread and circuses kind of guy.
Yeah.
He knows that if he can keep the populace just happy enough, but still controlled, he'll stay in power and preserve his rule. Larry Sharp often starts his talks with a question. And one of his questions is, can you name the longest serving head of state currently? And, people talk about it. Some people would say, well, maybe it's Queen Elizabeth, or was Queen Elizabeth at the time, or people would name some other people. He's like, no, it's actually Kim Il-jung,
wow,
who appointed himself leader for eternity. even after his death. And so he has been ruling for the last 48 years consecutively.
He's got skills. Oh, yeah, Mike Tomlin would be a good guess as well.
Mike Tomlin is also.
Love it. Love it. Let's just get another Super Bowl on that hand, okay?
There you go.
But in that space,
so
I think
Kim Jong-un, I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, his dad was in power before that timeline.
Yep.
Kim Jong-il, right?
Yep.
Kim Jong-il, then Kim Il-sung was the progenitor of the North Korea family there.
Right.
So,
I think, I think that, their longer range goal is the family staying in power. But I suspect that there's going to be a point in time in which the United States will say, you know what? Let us make you an offer that you can't refuse. I was thinking about this in the
Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about this in the context of, there's to take us a little bit off topic, but the idea that that Elon probably will buy MSNBC and CNBC and Sci-Fi Network and USA and a few other things, and the total cost is going to be $7 billion. I was not aware that Elon's current wealth is at $321 billion.
They throw that stuff around like it's nothing. Isn't it amazing?
It's what's crazy about it is that he bought. Well, first of all, what's really crazy about it is how stupid so many people are. Because I was arguing with somebody about this, about him doing it. They're like, well, what about all the money that he lost with
Twitter?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, he bought Twitter for 44, it went down to 12, but during that time, his personal wealth went up from 200 billion to 320 billion. So I don't really think it's that bad. He's like,
he ain't hurt.
All the money he lost for the shareholders. I'm like, There are no shareholders. He bought the entire company. He bought all the stock, you morons. It is crazy. It is crazy to think about that. But that
weird dynamic we live in.
Right. But as much as we talk about how ridiculous that is, and $321 billion, it still pales in comparison to the government and how much money they spend.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Truly.
Right?
Truly.
And so the United States government could offer the Jung family $100 billion. And it's probably a bargain. We'll say, we'll give you $100 billion to leave and turn the country over to South Korea. South Korea would be able to absorb North Korea very, very quickly. They've got the Germans for a model, and everything will be solved. It's just a question of figuring out what the price is.
Although I will say that East Germany is in a far better state relative to West Germany than North Korea is to South Korea.
Somewhat, but you've got the same language.
I'm talking about financially.
South Korea is really wealthy, though.
Yeah, South Korea is really wealthy.
Yeah,
but one of the underlying issues when it came to the reunification of Germany versus East versus West Germany was the amount of money that people had to put in to bring East Germany up to standard, and that did cause some friction within the country. It's going to take a lot more money for even in constant dollars. It's going to take a lot more money for South Korea to reintegrate the North into their country. Now they'll do it happily because the threat of North Korea annihilating Seoul within moments is
they'll do it happily for two reasons, though. They'll do it because they're great capitalists. The investment potential in North Korea is enormous. What if I could tell you that in 20 years, this place is going to be every bit as productive as South Korea?
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, I want to invest.
Yeah.
So I think I can't see a situation in which they're not able to figure that out. The question is, there are other players, and that's the thing that works against it.
China.
Exactly. China. It's definitely not in China's interest. It's definitely not in China's interest to have a unified Korea on its northeastern border. And it's not in China's interest to have the United States broker peace there. So in all of those places, I think that you have to solve the China problem first. And that I don't know that they're going to be able to do.
China is, I think, when we look forward in the next 4 years, China is the flashpoint. China is going to. I have a really bad feeling that once Trump does his tariff move, that they're going to go. They're going to move on Taiwan. Especially if we're really focused on bringing peace into Ukraine and negotiating that. Our focus is divided there. Our focus is divided with Israel, or we decide to do something with Iran. China's going to take advantage of that and take Taiwan. That's President Xi's main goal right now is to bring Taiwan back under Chinese rule. That's the last piece for him.
And I really, honestly, they what has it been? 60, 70 years since they've declared their independence and it hasn't been recognized.
1949, yep.
Let's say they draw them back into their fold. Seriously, what's their gain? I can't imagine much.
I mean, it's just like Hong Kong. They're reasserting dominance, plus the access to the South China Sea and asserting more dominance within the island nations there. There's lots of things to be gained. There's, of course, tremendous amounts of weaponry there. That's there. There's a tremendous amount of wealth in Hong Kong or in Taiwan. That, yeah, war will destroy, but there's still going to be somewhat infrastructure there. Now, it's going to be a bloody mess if China moves in. Semiconductors as well.
Yeah.
Just one word: plastics.
Yeah. Well, but I agree with you. Our semiconductors. The other thing about it is that so Taiwan is obviously not a member of the United Nations,
No.
and as such, they are not signatories to the Non-Proliferation Agreement.
Yet we defend them.
And Taiwan has an atomic energy program.
Mm.
So the idea that they don't have nuclear weapons or they don't have the capacity to produce nuclear weapons very quickly is, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. The question becomes, how far will Taiwan go to fight?
David, you mentioned, what did you just say? Plastics?
Well, that was my reference to The Graduate.
And I wanted to go there because I was thinking of Anne Bancroft, and I thought it was a wonderful reference. So thank you for that.
But yeah, I mean, Taiwan will fight. The Taiwanese definitely value their freedom, and China's done themselves a disservice.
They will have us.
So,
China's done themselves a disservice with how they've treated Hong Kong. They had kept Hong Kong semi-autonomous. I think Taiwan would not fight as hard. The fact that they've really, reined in Hong Kong,
yes,
that sends them the signal that's what their future looks like.
Absolutely. Right. There's the boilerplate, and they see it. They see it.
Yeah, I think too that the Chinese. It's an interesting thing because, we have seen the abject failure of the Russian military over the last 1,000 days. We don't know what shape the Chinese military is in. They have their annual skirmish with the Vietnamese on the border. But we haven't really seen Chinese troops in action anywhere.
Yeah. And they still don't have the force projection capability to really, outside of nuclear weapons, to get to the United States. But they still have more people in their army than we do have people. So
but the question becomes, could they actually get to Taiwan?
Yeah, they've got the force projection capability, I would say that the projection capability to get to pretty much any Pacific island nation. So Japan, Philippines, probably not all the way down to Australia, but maybe Indonesia, Southeast Asia. I think they've got enough force projection capability to do those areas, but getting across a expansive ocean would be a lot harder.
Yeah, I tell you, I have my doubts. I think about man and the changing naval warfare when air power rendered battleships essentially obsolete. I have a feeling that drones, which I suspect the Taiwanese possess in spades, have rendered shipping navies mostly obsolete. And in that same vein, they're going to be pretty effective against airplanes as well.
Well, and it's not a huge distance. It's 81 kilometers, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry, 81 miles to Taiwan. So I think they've got the ability to get there. I just don't. The two advantages for Taiwan is that it's a small landing area. I mean, it's an island, so you've
Right.
got to be able to coordinate where you're landing your ships at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to have some technological advantages. One, defending your home. Two, probably having a significant or at least a advantage of having more sophisticated weaponry.
Yeah.
Drones definitely. I'll
Yeah,
be
I mean,
interested to see what happens with sea defenses, how they'll handle that.
yeah, I mean, I would suspect that China would try to do a, yeah, I agree with
I
you
would
on that,
agree.
Sean. But I think that, they would try to do a sort of pre-D-Day style invasion with, 100,000 paratroopers.
I think it's gonna be shock and awe. They're gonna try and they're gonna try to overwhelm them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
81 miles is,
it's not
within
bad.
the
I mean,
range for for short range missiles too.
that's our distance, essentially our distance to Cuba.
Yeah.
So well, our invasion went went of Cuba, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I think China is going to be a flashpoint for this Trump administration, especially with the continued threats of the tariffs, the massive tariffs they want to put in place. Because again, I think China is willing to saber rattle, but play relatively nice as long as the money keeps coming in. But once you start threatening the money, they're. I mean, China is in a relatively weak monetary space as well because of
Yeah.
the
But
make work projects they put in place there in China.
if you keep threatening tariffs, which is a failed,
Oh yeah,
absolutely failed approach, the other side just simply meets them. The consumer on our side ultimately pays them. We're in
Oh, yeah.
inflation. It's a lousy. I wonder why sometimes Trump and his ilk haven't looked at the old Smoot-Hawley
Holy Smoot.
effect. Yes, and saw what a disaster it was, and yet they seem to think nobody's paying attention and the tariffs are going to work. They're a disaster.
I think that, I mean, the best argument I've heard about this, and I don't agree with it, but when they put tariffs on Chinese steel, they raised the price point not to the point at which American steel became competitive, because that ship has sailed. I don't have to tell you guys in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But they made it to the point that Australian steel was competitive. And so we started buying steel from Australia, which isn't the worst thing. Australia is a reasonable ally, and it led to other trade in other places. Tariffs are taxes that Americans pay.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that. Are there things that we're willing to buy? the people who are sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Phil, somebody.
All
It'll
right.
come back to you.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, China is going to retaliate with tariffs. I think,
Oh, right. Yeah, tariffs.
and with with Taiwan being the big semiconductor area, it makes it even more attractive to really hit America where it hurts the worst, which is our our need for semiconductor and producing those things. And what may end up being a saving grace for the Trump administration was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, where they were really focusing on doing more domestic production of semiconductors. So, but you know, that's going to raise prices for everybody because American produced conductors are going to be massively more expensive than what's produced in Taiwan or any other.
But if American-made microprocessors are more expensive, I turn around and say, so be it. If people are looking to buy from the viewpoint of national security, I can imagine a lot of people willing to pay that premium.
Yeah, I mean, but then you're talking about knock-on effects. I mean, the market's going to go where the market's going to go, especially when you're trying to save, to increase your profits and trying to make yourself look better in Wall Street.
I mean, let's talk about tariffs a little bit. Let's take a different example. What if we said that we weren't actually going to impose tariffs, but we weren't going to trade with a country that has slave labor?
Yes.
That would actually have the same effect
Yeah.
as putting those tariffs. And I don't think anybody thinks that's an unsustainable position.
No.
So-
Yeah, I mean, we've got chapter and verse on what's happening in Xinjiang with the ethnic Uyghur population, the
Yep.
prisons out there. We know, although we kind of put ourselves into a little bit of a bind there because we do the same thing with our own prison population. But
no, it's absolutely true. America certainly can't claim any moral high ground in that case.
However,
but what happens is, of course, like what we see is what's happening with Russia, right? The Russia is selling oil to China with this hidden tanker fleet and all these other things that are happening. The Russians certainly won't have any problem buying things from the Chinese. And can the two of them sustain each other's? Maybe.
Yeah.
The other source of wealth in the world, the EU, they would side with us.
Well, before we get to the quiz part, though, the last place that we need to look at is Iran, because I talked about the National Security Advisor being a hawk on Iran. Donald Trump has proven in the past that he's willing to go after Iranian leadership. Qasem Soleimani was assassinated by American military back in 2018, I think. No, it was later in this. It was 2019 or 2020. I think. Where do you see Iran falling into the Trump sphere of influence?
My guess is that there's two parts there, right? For one, Trump likes the Saudis, right? The Saudis.
He has shown that, yes.
Right, and so
Jared and MBS are buddy. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. The Saudis evidently like Trump, young girls. They like to get whatever corrupt end they can.
They like glowing globes and scenes of world domination. I think that realistically, the Trump administration wants to see Iran contained, because Iran is more than just themselves and their oil industry, right? They're a huge exporter of chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in that respect, it becomes interesting, right? Because Iran is allied with Russia right now.
Yeah.
So
and Iran's a huge wild card. It is tough to even determine where they're blowing in the wind in any given moment, but we know it's against us. That's the constant.
Right. The great Satan. Is Trump able to leverage something with Russia to control Iran? I don't know. Iran's position is so fragile and tenuous. It's astonishing to me that they don't really realize it. Maybe they do, right?
No,
I mean, maybe this last attack by Israel
they may know
made
it
Iran sort of realize.
Well,
I
think they do. Yeah.
I think they realize it a lot more now after Israel's last attack.
I mean, their responses have been rather, overwhelmingly in numbers, but very tepid. It was like a very telegraphed punch, and easy to duck, easy to.
They're not at all intimidated by us. They seem like they want to make their moves and set their policy just to irate us. It's part of their plan.
Well, I think that they know that we, or at least previous administrations, have been unwilling to confront Iran, militarily.
Yeah,
but like I said, this last airstrike, which most people would say that Israel had intelligence, American intelligence assistance.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed all the air defenses in a circle around Iran's nuclear facilities.
Yeah,
and it wasn't,
that's pretty exact. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course they're going to. I mean, that was a message to say, this is we can get to your nuclear facility. We're not gonna bomb it because that would be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, just from a nuclear release standpoint, and seeing
it would be a bad idea for Iran.
Downwind, it could adversely affect us.
China, to the west of Iran, north and west of Iran, you're talking about Russia and China. So not and India and Pakistan.
As bad as Chernobyl.
Mm-hmm.
But
it depends.
But I mean, and then of course the other thing about it is, they can absolutely close all the ports in Iran, right, and just destroy them all.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, what are they going to do? Transport the oil over the land?
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. I find this amazing. So bear with me, please, gentlemen. Yeah. Since 1972, when we started to have the impact of the Arab oil embargoes, we here in the United States have dreamed of being energy independent. And what has happened in the last decade? We have found more oil reserves than Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
Via fracking, we have more natural gas reserves than we ever imagined. We, here in the United States, are at this moment absolutely to that point where we've dreamed since 1972 of being energy independent. And we are. And what are we doing?
Well, here's the thing.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot, saying we got to go EV, we got to go this, we got to go that. We're trying to be less energy independent when all of a sudden we have it.
Well, you have it, but it's the price of getting it out of the ground versus what it takes to get. It's cheaper to get it out of the ground out of Saudi Arabia and ship it all the way over to us.
But American ingenuity can get it. We've shown that again and again and again.
And it's also that we need to build more refineries and things like that.
Yes.
There definitely is a question of what it's worth. And I can't remember exactly, but I recall the figures being roughly that a gallon of Saudi oil costs about 10 cents to get out of the earth. And a gallon of tar sand from Canada costs about $5 to get out of the earth. So you're talking about a 5,000% difference in what you get out of it. Now, that being said, Texas, if Texas were an OPEC nation, it would be the number 2 producing oil nation after Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's ahead of Iran. It's ahead of Nigeria. It's ahead of the UAE, all that stuff. The United States is the second largest oil producing nation in the world after the Soviets, or I guess they don't like to be called Soviets anymore. But
yet they are.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what their numbers are because a lot of that is in the Caucasus, which is, Ukraine.
Well, they've got a lot of reserves in Siberia, which they can't get to.
Right. So it's an interesting thing, but the other part about it is that we exerted a lot of economic influence on the world by buying all the excess capacity of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not buying that, that empowers other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that is probably the worst one you're going to hear all day. It empowers other countries. Sorry.
I mean, the problem is though, U.S. production dips every time we see a gallon of gas go below $2. Like that's
right.
It's just you can set your watch to it because it is far more expensive for us to get that gas out of the ground than it is for and the Saudis know this. So whenever we start getting froggy about domestic oil production and things, they start dropping the price of there. They start producing more. They start dropping the price, and then it makes
froggy.
Well, and at $5 a gallon for gasoline, solar becomes a cheaper alternative. So they can never let the price go over $5 again.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the fun quiz. Where do we go from here?
All right.
Let's do the quiz. We ready?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I don't know where Janice is tonight. Hopefully she didn't go over to YouTube because I don't know that we ever got on YouTube tonight.
Well, the more the merrier.
It's been a pain the last couple of episodes.
Right.
So I'll have to redo. I'll probably have to redo the show.
I know a lot of people are wondering if we're going to start promoting the show before. Sorry.
More ads, more promotion,
maybe
more girls in bikinis, just whatever it takes.
We start talking about it like 2 days beforehand, building a little bit of an audience. Let's do the quiz. It's going to be very exciting.
Let us do that. Do exactly that. All right.
These are all in Buffalo Sabres jerseys. We'll know.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish. All right. CNN 5 Things News Quiz. There's that banana.
Yeah, we know that one.
Sold for millions of dollars. Bitcoin, we know that went over like $100,000.
That was crazy.
Yeah, not quite 100,000 yet.
And then an address of some sort. All right. Question number 1. Which severe weather event slammed the Pacific Northwest and Canada's British Columbia this week? Bomb cyclone, heat dome, thunder shower, or snow tornado?
Oh, Hurricane Blanche. Hurricane Blanche.
I tell you what, it was the bomb.
It's the bomb.
The bomb.
I was wrong.
Yep.
It was technically a hurricane. What was we see in the Atlantic?
So what? Did it hit Seattle?
It hit Seattle and the parts of California and the Sierras.
It blew a couple cups of coffee out of people's hands. And things like that.
It's an incredible low pressure area.
That's funny.
Yep.
My granddad.
So a deadly bomb cyclone caused massive power outage.
Oh, this one I know.
Question number 2. Which of the following is the world's most polluted city? Beijing, London, New Delhi, or New York? I'm going to guess New Delhi.
It is New Delhi by a mile. They were so bad this week.
Oh, look at that. Holy crap. Sky in New Delhi enveloped with smog, leaving many residents with persistent coughs, lung issues, stinging eyes as of last week. Nowhere else on the planet has air so hazardous to human health, according to the Global
the
Air
United
Quality
States
Monitor.
is doing pretty well. It's just China and India that are killing us all.
Well, and that's an interesting thing when we talk about, they're doing the COP29 summit this week, and some of these climate deals. A lot of them exclude places like India and China because of their developmental status.
How convenient!
And the cities in China have been they had to do special things around the Olympics so that Beijing would have decent air quality for the Olympics. But it was
Not
like
only
they had to
that,
shut down all manufacturing in the city to
guys,
be able to get things
I
under control.
I
And
don't know
it's
if you knew this.
right.
Fascinating fact. But when the Beijing Olympics took place, they had adjustable base beds in every athlete's room, unbeknownst to them. And they all loved it. They all loved the adjustable bases. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, they put them to work every Olympics. Those beds get a good workout.
Got to work
The
those beds, yes, sirree. You just don't know what happens next.
All right, cool.
I was just going to say, if you haven't seen The Crown, definitely recommend it. There's a great part during season 3 when they talk about the first real incidents of this, which a lot of people don't realize did happen in London. 1952,
Really?
London's engulfed by a fog that's filled with coal gas.
Oh
Lots
yeah,
of people died.
Wow.
It's now the Western countries know how to avoid this now, but it's not a new phenomenon in the world. But Delhi is worse than it's ever been. Their pollution level is 40 times over what the CDC considers hazardous.
Wow.
40 times.
wow.
I was not aware.
All right, question number 3: which company recently attempted a test launch of the most powerful rocket ever built? Boeing, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, or SpaceX?
I have no idea on this one.
I think it was SpaceX because there's video of Don Jr. because I think Trump was there and Elon Musk, and there was a video of Don Jr. rubbing
Got
his
to be
teeth.
SpaceX. Got to be SpaceX in this case.
All right.
Don had a
Not
Coke
that I'm
moment.
not impressed, but it's got to be them.
All right.
Correct.
Nice.
SpaceX aborted a highly anticipated booster catch attempt Tuesday during the 6th test of Starship, the most powerful rocket ever built. Not Jefferson's Starship, just Starship.
We built this city on rock and roll.
Well done,
That
David.
song is
Well
awful.
done.
That song is awful, though.
Knee
All right,
deep
question
in-
number 4. Art collectors are clamoring this week for a banana duct taped to a wall. How much did the piece fetch at a New York auction?
$6 million.
Yeah, so 150 million or 150,000, 730,000, 6.2 million, or 9.9 million.
Who is that stupid?
Well, this isn't the first time this has happened. Somebody did
Right.
the same thing a few years ago, and the dude
Nice
bought
job,
it,
dude.
and he pulled the banana off there and ate the banana.
Had to be Bob Banana that did this.
Banana has not rotted yet.
I bet it's porcelain.
Bob Banana.
But if Joe says 6 million, I'm glad to know it.
$6.24 million at
Nice.
Sotheby's auction in New York.
Is that crazy or what? Are people stupid? and insane?
People have more dollars than cents.
Yeah, that's very funny. People have so much. Some people have so much money, it's insane. We looked at a $280 million townhouse in New York City today.
Jesus.
It's for sale, and it's listed on YouTube. It's 6 stories tall. It has a pool, and actually 6 stories tall. Then it has 2 basement levels, and there's a pool in one of the basement levels, and it's insane. I'm like, who's going to pay $280 million
To share a wall with somebody?
And yet they do.
Yep. Somebody. Well, because we talk about this, right? Elon Musk has a net worth of $321 billion. $280 million is what he makes in 3 days of
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, question number 5. The U.S. government this week formally proposed a partial breakup of which company? Amazon, Google, Meta, or Apple?
Google.
Let's Google it.
Google me timbers.
Yeah, the Department of Justice proposed a partial breakup of Google, targeting the company's illegal monopoly on search. They're talking about breaking off Chrome.
Yeah. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's no way that Trump continues that.
Yeah.
Let him go ahead and break off Chrome. Nobody uses it.
Question number 6. Which television personality was selected for a top position in President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration? Dr. Phil, Ryan Seacrest, Steve Harvey, or Dr. Oz?
This is not fair because more than one of them is a television personality.
I wanted to say Jay
How's
Leno,
Hegseth
but he
not in
wasn't
there?
one of the choices.
Yeah. I mean, Hegseth won. The guy that I think he picked for commerce was picked because he's a Fox News personality.
Linda McMahon.
Linda McMahon's a news personality, but
in this case,
of the choice, I mean, I would have rather had Ryan Seacrest as the head of.
But it is Dr. Oz.
But I blame.
Please don't let
Oprah
it be
Winfrey.
Dr. Oz.
Yeah, it is.
I blame Oprah Winfrey for Dr.
Pennsylvania
Oz
native
and Dr. Phil. Like she has some shit to answer for.
Native.
Yeah. So, television personality and cardiothoracic surgeon Dr. Mehmet Oz was selected to oversee the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Next.
Question number 7. I mean, I wonder how many of sketchy supplements he'll be peddling off to Medicare and Medicaid recipients.
Exactly.
Question number 7. Which country updated its nuclear doctrine this week? Russia, North Korea, France, or Israel?
It has to be Israel.
Vladimir Putin.
Oh, that does look like Vladdy in the pic there.
In fact, I can even tell you what they changed it to. They said,
I wanted to say France, but it's got to be
Borscht.
Yeah, they changed it to say that if any country is being assisted in fighting against Russia, any non-nuclear country is being assisted in fighting against Russia by a nuclear power country, whether they're using nuclear weapons or not, that is sufficient level for Russia to use nuclear weapons.
Lovely.
Can we just bomb him into oblivion?
Oh, we could, but we'd also get bombed.
I know, but in the meantime, it could be a good time.
All right, question number 8. Which is the largest and most popular cryptocurrency by market cap? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, or Solana?
Doge.
I'm surprised that Doge isn't in here, but it is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin. That it's gone up since Trump was reelected. The thing that I'm grateful, maybe I've gotten rid of most of the people on my timeline who were annoying about this, but I'm not seeing the hour by hour updates of Bitcoin's price by folks. So, but yeah, Bitcoin, largest cryptocurrency, top 70,000 in March, now trading at above 90,000.
Yep,
getting close to 100,000. Yeah. Which automaker is changing its iconic logo? Ford, BMW, Jaguar, or Volkswagen?
I don't know this, but I did see that Jaguar had a new ad that was incredibly poorly received. So my guess is Jaguar, unless you guys know something else.
I don't know. Well, we'll wait for the audience to chip in. Oh,
Sean also says Jag.
Jaguar.
They're changing it to the Austin Powers Jaguar.
Jaguar? Oh,
yeah, that's what the Brits say is Jaguar.
It makes you want to hear them say, "I am an idiot" because Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Just saying.
I actually prefer Jaguar to people who say Jaguar because there's no I, or there's no I there.
But Jaguar is so sexy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm going
that's
for
a bad
Jaguar.
logo. That is a bad logo. I don't like that logo.
Jaguar.
It emphasizes all electric vehicle lineup. So they're going all electric.
That tells you have no testicles.
Question number 10. Headliners were announced for 2025 Coachella Festival this week. Where does this popular music event take place annually? Colorado, California, Oregon, or New Mexico? I know where this is.
I mean, I see the palm trees, so it's clearly Colorado.
No, it's got to be Southern California.
It is indeed California.
As Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, California.
Hasta la vista, baby.
When I was governor, we were facing the financial apocalypse.
John got it. Ready to go. We got 10 out of 10 this week.
Woo!
Yay! Right on.
Way to go, guys. You
Yeah,
did
so
it.
we did it. We made it through another show this week.
What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
Probably not much.
I'm heading to my stepson and his wife's home for
Nice.
turkey
I'm
dinner,
smoking turkey.
and I'm going to see my granddaughters. Other than that, work. How about you, Dan?
I am heading up to Boston. Anybody's
Nice.
in the area, I will be at the Black Rose
Are you
tomorrow night. in
taking me
Faneuil
with
Hall.
you?
Well, if you want to show up at the Black Rose, it is a great place to raise a pint. It
Is that in
go.
Boston?
It's in Boston. Yep.
Yeah, I got to say, Dan, if I may. So
Yep.
my youngest son is working in the military in Kittery, but he's dating a beautiful woman in Boston. And I haven't met her yet, but this could be the exact moment.
The one,
Well,
huh?
I will tell you,
right.
Joe, Boston is a lovely town. I miss it at least once a month.
Well, Dan, please
yeah.
give me the connections. Give me the
The
moments. I would love to get there so I could see them.
Well, so an interesting thing about it is Boston is also extremely accessible by train.
Yes. Yes.
So
Trains.
I can't remember. Are you're in Montgomery County?
No, I'm way in Center County in Pittsburgh, but I have been to Boston one time, my friend, and I went into town via train.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to get there. Boston's a terrible town for driving.
Oh God!
Even now, I'm dreading tomorrow driving into town. I'm leaving here at 9.
The lanes in Boston are suggestions. And the first time I went to Boston, it was like the week after the election where Kerry lost to Bush.
Yeah.
And I go to that with a Union Oyster House or something like that. It's the oldest restaurant there in Boston.
Yep.
And I'm standing outside. I'm about to go in, and I see this. I mean, this thing was probably a mid 70s Cadillac Pontiac, just a massive.
Yes.
And I saw him pull up to look. He was like in a parallel park, and it was a compact spot. And I was like, this is going to be interesting. I'm just going to watch this. The dude backs in, hits the car behind him and pushes it, pulls forward, hits the car in front of him, pushes that, and does this like 4 or 5 times till he makes a space for him. And this car, all the other cars are like stacking up on one another. It's like, God damn. Okay, right on, man.
Love it. I tell you what, you can't beat those 1974 Cadillacs.
Yeah.
They were the best of all time.
Yep.
I'll give a shout out to all these guys mentioning the Golden Banana on Route 1 in Saugus.
The Golden Banana, really?
Golden Banana.
Okay. Anyway, I would love to meet you there, Dan. We would have a good time. I will let my family know, and we will have a great meeting.
That'll be a fun time. Give me a little heads up because I'm only there Monday. Then I'm heading down to the Cape for Thanksgiving with my dad. And
I'll look for you online, sir.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right.
Because I do love to go to Boston.
Well, thanks to everybody watching us. Give us a like, share, subscribe wherever you're at. Throw some more comments out there if you want to. We appreciate you all that you do. We're thankful for you because
Give us some suggestions, guys, about things we should talk about on next week's show.
What do you want us to talk about on the next show? We will talk to you. Yeah, exactly. So just reach out to us, and thank you again for watching us, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Gracie.
Good night.